Hello and welcome back as we close out this section on CSA concepts, this time focusing on disaster recovery. So what we're going to talk about here is some business disaster recovery keywords. Now, these are very important to understand and probably memorize for the AWS CSA exam. So the first concept we want to talk about is recovery time objective, otherwise known as RTO. And this is the time it takes after a disruption to restore operations back to its regular service level as defined by the company's operational level agreement. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that if the RTO or the recovery time objective is set to 4 hours by the company's operational level agreement, then you have 4 hours to restore service back to an acceptable level. So if you're an architect, a developer, a sysadmin, and something goes wrong with the application in your company and you are tasked with repairing it, most likely they will have an RTO that you are expected to meet. And so the RTO, again, in this case, is the expected time to have service restored back to an acceptable level. Next is recovery point objective, or RPO, and this is the acceptable amount of data loss measured in time. So what exactly does that mean? Well, if the system goes down, let's say at 10 p.m., and RPO, or recovery point objective, is set for 2 hours, then you should recover all data as part of the application as it was before 8 p.m. So to clarify that even further, if you're running an application and the application goes down at 10 p.m. and the RPO is set to 2 hours, that means that you're expected to recover all data except for data in the last 2 hours. So if it goes down at 10, you're expected, when everything is brought back online, to have all the data prior to 8 p.m. So those are recovery time objective and recovery point objective. And again, two key concepts that you should memorize and know extremely well going into the AWS CSA exam. Now, not only should you design for recovery for your applications running on AWS, you can also use AWS as a disaster recovery solution for your on-premise applications or data. The AWS services used should be determined based off the business's RTO and RPO operational agreement. So there are several different types of ways that we can use AWS for disaster recovery for on-premise solutions. The first is called a pilot light. And this is a minimum version of your production environment that is running on AWS. So basically just a very scaled down version of your production environment. This allows for replication from on-premise servers to AWS, and in the event of a disaster, the AWS environment spins up more capacity, right? Because we have elasticity and we can automatically do this and switch the DNS from on-premise to AWS. So basically, if we're running our full application on an on-premise data center, we can have a smaller version of that application on AWS. And if there's an issue with our primary application and our on-premise data center goes down, we can use the already provisioned but yet small pilot light environment on AWS and just spin it up really quickly, just add instances, increase capacity. And we can do that all automatically through coding and through things like auto scaling. And then all we would need to do is switch the DNS over from on-premise to our AWS environment, and we can quickly recover from disaster if our on-premise data center were to go down. Now, it is important to keep AMIs up to date when following along with pilot-like protocols. Now, next is something called a warm standby, and this has a larger footprint than a pilot light setup and would most likely be running business-critical applications in standby. This type of configuration could also be used as a test area for applications. So it is a larger version of Pilot Light with more resources running, which may currently be used as a test area, but could easily be a failover if your on-premise data center were to go down. The next is multi-site solution, and this essentially clones your production environment, which can either be in the cloud or on-premise. It has an active-active configuration, which means instance size and capacity are all running in full standby and can easily convert at the flip of a switch. Methods like this could also be used to load balance using latency-based routing or Route 53 failover in the event of an issue. So between Pilot Light, Warm Standby, and Multi-Site Solution, you have 3 examples of how you can use AWS as disaster recovery options for things that are on premise. Obviously, with Pilot Lite being the cheapest, Warm Standby being the middle ground in terms of cost, and multi-site solution being the most expensive, because here you have very few resources provision, here you have a small amount of resource provision, and here you have basically your entire environment replicated and cloned in AWS. So again, what you need to take from this lesson is memorization of recovery time objective and recovery point objective, and a good working understanding of Pilot Lite, Warm Standby, and multi-site solution, and why you would use each one of them and in what type of scenario. And with that, we'll conclude this lesson. Thank you for watching. You may now move on.